FoundHer Rising, the podcast for women founders in wellness, coaching, and consulting who are ready to step beyond one-to-one work and build businesses that create freedom, impact, and income. I'm your host, Christine Hakkola, business coach, former psychotherapist, and mentor to women scaling service-based businesses. So here's my question for you today. What if the path to sustainable growth starts with reconnecting to your own inner wisdom? Today, I'm joined by Jennifer Lima, a national board-certified health and wellness coach and seasoned clinical research professional. After stepping away from a long career in clinical research, she immersed herself in herbal medicine, integrative wellness, and the nearly forgotten healing traditions she now stewards. Her work empowers individuals to make meaningful, sustainable change on their own terms. Welcome, Jennifer.
Hi, thank you for having me, Christine.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to have you and to dive in. One of the things that first struck me about you was your extensive background in clinical research. It's not a background I often hear people transitioning from into entrepreneurship. And so let's just start there. Tell us a little bit about your career and that transition.
Well, I spent about almost 30 years, I'm afraid to say. No one did the math on my age. So doing clinical research, I spent 20 of those years doing research on substance use disorders, treatments and interventions, training clinicians on different interventions. And for a really long time, I felt I was making an impact. I felt that I was making, helping people make changes in their life and helping people who were struggling with substance use disorders and, teaching on, all of these new treatments and interventions that were being used, whether they were talk therapy or medications. And then things shifted. I didn't feel I was making an impact anymore. I felt that I was studying drugs on humans. And
what happened? Like, do you have some insight into like what the shift was, if you're willing to share?
The shift was in me. It really wasn't an external shift. It was just that I think what really happened, and it's my friend Michelle's fault, is that my friend was taking health coach training. She's a nurse. She was taking a health coach training class with Institute for Integrative Nutrition. And she said, "You would love this."
Oh my gosh, the beginning of the end.
So I went into and I took the class with her just because it was so interesting. And the speakers were amazing. And I just had like this whole paradigm shift
of
my own values and recognizing things. And then recognizing in the research that we were doing that we were looking at the outcomes. And again, it's a clinical research study if you're looking at drugs or if you're looking at outcomes. You look at the outcomes for that drug, and I'm sure you've seen tons of commercials where, may cause, this, and this, and really when you're studying a drug, that's what you're really looking at. You're looking at for side effects.
Yeah.
But in looking at the outcomes of whether this drug is going to help someone with their substance use problems, whether they're quitting smoking or they're trying to get off opiates or whatever it is, we weren't looking at a whole lot of other aspects of people's lives. We weren't looking at how are they sleeping. And a lot of these, especially when we're looking at opiates earlier on, this was before the opiate epidemic became became so prominent. We were looking at people who were struggling in their lives and they maybe weren't living in the best environments. And in giving up drugs, they would have to give up every friend they know. They would have to give up. They would have to move away from. It's so much more, and it's just simple things like I said, like sleep, hydration. What are you eating? Do you have access to good food, or do you only have access to CVS? Do you live in a food desert in the inner city? So I started bringing these things up at work. Like, can we look at this? Can we look at wellness? Can we look at, other indicators? And I was given blank stares. Like I was suggesting voodoo. And it's really started I started making changes in my own life and noticing things in my own life. And I was just, more and more, and also just the culture and my job became very, very stressful. And I realized I can't do this anymore. And someone said to me, and it was and I have to, it's a sentence I remember, is that they said, well, your career is no longer aligned with your own personal values.
Ooh, wow. What a whammy.
And I was like, okay, what now? What do I do? So again, I stuck with it. I stuck with clinical research. I moved on from academic research. Then I got a job with a very gigantic pharmaceutical company. And it
Yeah.
was horrible. I was absolutely miserable. And
Wow.
I was even farther away from making an impact in anyone's
Right.
life.
You had just changed so much and a new world had opened up to
Right.
you.
So
Yes.
the best day ever was the day I got laid off. And
I love your mindset, your perspective around
but
that.
it was because I was already burnt out. I was already exhausted. I already hated what I was doing. And I got called into, I knew they were restructuring my division.
Mm-hmm.
And so I get called, all of a sudden I get an invitation to a Zoom call with my manager. And I get into the
Mm-hmm.
Zoom call and HR is sitting there and I'm like, this is it.
You know,
So my
yeah.
daughter happened to be visiting and I texted her. I'm like, I think I'm getting laid off. She's like,
Mm.
so I got laid off. I shut my computer. I shoved my computer and my cell phone into a FedEx box. Went out into the living room and said to my daughter, let's go get tacos.
Wow.
And that was it. And that was the beginning. So I was like, okay, what now? What do I do?
Yeah,
And
because it's one, I'm struck by, like, it's one thing for you to have such a big paradigm shift about the industry you're working in, right?
right.
That part of the journey is clear, that you're no longer interested or aligned with working for a pharmaceutical company. Your mind has now been opened. I'm actually gonna say thanks to Michelle, not blaming Michelle,
Yes, no, it is.
to
Yeah.
holistic
No,
wellness.
thanks, my friend
But
Michelle.
but to not only switch, industries, but to also go from being a salaried, career-long employee to being an entrepreneur. Like, what inspired that?
It was really, honestly, I used to live in New York and I had to commute into Manhattan.
Yeah.
And towards the end of working, in the city,
Yeah.
my commute was filled with daydreams of having a different
Mhm.
life, of having a different thing and starting a wellness company and trying to see what would that wellness company look like. And
Yeah.
I didn't realize that at the time that I was manifesting.
Oh my goodness.
During this long sitting in traffic, waiting to get over the George Washington Bridge, I was actually creating magic and I was actually
That
manifesting.
is amazing.
And it took
Okay, I have to know, Jen, like I so get it. I so resonate with manifesting your vision, I love that you use the word magic. Like, talk to us about those early days. Like, practically speaking, how did you create it? How did you bring this business into real life?
well, I went back to as soon as I got laid off.
Yeah.
Um, again, I got some severance, so I actually got to enjoy a summer for the first time in my entire life,
Oh,
which
amazing.
was incredible.
Yeah.
And actually really spend time thinking about what next. What am I going to do next?
Yeah.
What does it look
You
like?
took some time.
I was also lucky enough to have a group of women around me that also were entrepreneurs that were able to give
So
me the
important.
nudges that I needed.
Yeah.
Um,
So you weren't doing this in isolation. You had a
no,
community of other entrepreneurs you were
yeah, I
learning
had a
from.
community of other
Wow.
entrepreneurs and giving me the nudges and celebrating that I got laid off. And
I love that.
so, yeah, so I was able to, and I was lucky enough to have the time to sit and think, what does this look like and feel like? What is it? What is it? And
Yeah.
I went back to the health coach training program. And I did, because I had finished the program in 2018. Now it's
Yeah.
2023. And I went back and I did the intensive practicum course as
Mm.
a refresher for the coaching skills and for everything.
Yeah.
And then also was training to take the national boards,
Hmm.
which I passed this past year.
Wow. Fantastic.
And but
Congratulations.
in that, in the beginning of what my business looked like. It's not what it looks like now because everything shifts and everything evolves.
Yes. So what
Um,
did it look like at the beginning, and how did you go from, driving in your car dreaming to getting those first few clients and actually doing it?
yeah, I mean the beginning, like I said, thank God I did have a network,
Yeah.
and in that network, the network grew of other
Hmm.
people,
Hmm.
and getting the first few clients, it was great. And again, I went into coaching. I was doing one-on-one, which is traditional.
Yeah.
Um,
It's a great place to
My
start.
other love is plants. My other love is herbal medicine. So again, I was taking some herbal medicine classes just because I love it.
Yeah.
And doing a couple of like little workshops on starting off our own home apothecary. This is simple.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
as that evolved, and it's still evolving,
Yeah.
I started to realize, really refine my niche, really refine who is it I want to help. And it really became helping women and helping
Mhm.
women, who are so completely overwhelmed
Mhm.
by all the noise. I
Yeah.
mean, all the noise on social media, it's like, you have to take magnesium and you have to do this and you have to do that. And it becomes overwhelming of all the things that you
Yeah.
need to
So
do.
so much advice. We're kind of drowning in it and you can't do all the
Right.
things.
So, yeah, so it really evolved now. It's evolving naturally because it's still.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
so I became, instead of coaching everyone, I coach women.
Yeah.
And, that evolved. And then it also evolved into, I'm still a scientist at heart. I'm still a researcher.
Mhm.
So, one of the things I am doing right now is creating a winter wellness journey. I don't want to call it a challenge because challenges are hard. This is a journey. And looking in is just really a very simple looking at your own personal habits. The things that I wanted to do in the research studies when I was doing clinical research, now I'm applying that to the practice of helping women look at your different, how did you sleep? How are you eating? And reminding women that you are a bio individual. You are unique. So it's
Yes, I
not
can
one.
see already in your description of how quickly your business has already evolved and is
Right.
evolving. It sounds like, and I just want to recap for this for the
Yeah.
listeners because I think it's really important that some of the things that led to your success initially were one, having a network of people who supported you,
Yes.
connected you, helped you grow and learn what you needed to do. And then starting with one-on-one work, which is where a lot of people start, not everybody. And it
Right.
sounds like very quickly that evolved into workshops, into other services, into
Right.
this journey. What would you say were some of the biggest, were or are some of the biggest mindset shifts that you've had to make stepping into this entrepreneurial journey?
The one thing is, it really, the thing that I had to get over the most was imposter syndrome.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
so
that
prevalent.
because I was very, very confident in what I used to do, and I was the boss, and I was very confident in my role as the boss,
Yeah.
and I was able to just, troubleshoot and take care of things, and I knew, I was an expert in my field, and
Mm-hmm.
now I'm in this new field, and I'm like, who am I?
Totally out of your element.
Yeah, but also, who am I to tell any, to guide anyone
Yeah.
on, their health and their wellness and, just living their best life
Yeah. I
when,
think so many of us
I'm
experience
having a
that.
hard time showing up for myself. So, and that's the thing. So it was really hard for me at first to not just be authentic, but find out who I was in this new role.
Yeah. What helped you? What helped you go from who am I to, to do this, to offer this, to help people, to and I'm not suggesting that that necessarily ever fully goes away. I think, we all have those insecurities and those moments, especially when things aren't going exactly the way we'd like them to. But I can tell from our previous conversation and from the way that you carry yourself and speak today that it's not that same Jennifer who was, who am I to do this? What was there one thing, was there one moment, like what was it that helped you shift from who am I to do this to more fully owning your role and what you do?
I mean, having little successes always helps.
Mm,
And that's the one thing. And
small wins.
also just being, just checking in with myself. I mean, it's a very simple thing, just checking in with myself, checking in with my gut, and saying, do I belong here? And the little
Mm,
voice inside me saying, yes, yes, you belong here. This is where you're supposed to be. And
yeah.
I continually do this. You have to check in with your why. Why am I here?
Mhm. Yeah.
and just really checking in with that, I belong here, and this is what I'm meant to be doing.
Yeah. I
And
love that.
it's, I know it sounds like a simple thing, but it's a lot of, just sitting and meditating on it and just like really, being still and letting, the answers come to you.
Yeah. No, I
That,
think it's simple, but it's also so profound, right? I think that little voice, the negative one that most of us have in our
yeah,
head, can really, really derail us if we choose to listen to it. But, doing that gut check, listening to our intuition, celebrating the small wins, I think that's huge, sounds like is what has built your confidence over time.
right. And also treating myself the way I would treat a client. Just having
Mm,
that unconditional positive regard for myself,
that's lovely.
because I would never say to a client, like, what are you doing?
Right. Right. Why are we treating ourselves that way when we'd never treat our
Right.
clients that way?
So
Yes.
that's one. The other thing was just, again, and I saw on one of your other podcasts, someone shared a book. So the book that really made a big difference for me is The Big Leap by Gay
Oh,
Hendricks.
I love that. I have it on my shelf
So
behind me. It's such a great book, The
right
Big
there.
Leap. Yes, Gay
Um,
Hendricks.
and it really did help me really hone in on like what exactly is it that's my zone of genius? Like really what
Mm,
is it that I am not only really good at, that's like a gift, but
yeah.
the thing that I enjoy that it's not
Right.
work.
And that the world needs that you do for free.
Right.
The thing that just really lights
Exactly.
you up.
And that's the thing. It's like, and it really helped me like get to know myself and get to know,
Mm,
where I should be leading my
yeah.
business.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I echo
Yeah.
that book recommendation. If anyone hasn't read it yet,
Yeah.
I highly recommend The
I
Big Leap.
recommend it all the time. I tell
That's
people that
awesome.
I should just start like, get on Amazon and become an
Yeah,
affiliate
too bad you
for
don't get kickbacks for it. So Jennifer, what has been the biggest surprise for you? Because you have a long history of not being an entrepreneur, and not only was the industry new for you, being an entrepreneur and owning your own business, founding your own business was brand new. What would you say is the biggest thing that surprised you, that was unexpected, that you did not know about owning and running your own business?
the biggest learning curve was marketing myself.
Okay. Yeah.
Marketing has been the hardest thing. Like, and trying to again cut through the noise of social media and figure
Yeah.
out like how am I going to do this on social media? And I'm not, I'm not an influencer. I'm not into, making videos of myself and just trying to
Mhm.
figure out how am I going to get my business out there? How am I going to, have people, and it's still a struggle,
Yeah.
which,
Thank you
you
for
know,
admitting that. Right. I think it's sometimes as women and as business owners, like hard to admit the things that we struggle with in our own business.
yeah,
As a practitioner, sometimes I think we feel like we have to, show up as though we have it all together. And, I know I don't, and most of my colleagues don't, we're real human beings. So, to
yeah,
be able to share like so openly about the struggles, and specifically with marketing, I'm curious what your experience is. I have found there's a big difference between marketing yourself to obtain one-on-one clients. Often we can do that. I don't want to say with minimal effort, but warm referrals, word of mouth through the network, which most of us women find a lot easier. Whereas when you start to shift into more scalable offerings, workshops, online services, those warm referrals, word of mouth networks, either we tap them out or they don't quite work in the same way for those other offerings. What has been your experience around that?
it was just really learning and learning from, again, I have to say that a lot of it is finding people like you that like you
Mm,
can, say, that know how to do it and saying like, okay, show me, what am I
yes.
doing wrong?
Yeah.
Having my daughter actually teach me Instagram.
Yeah. Asking
But she
people
kept,
who know.
right, she's 22, so she totally gets Instagram and TikTok and all of these things.
That's
And,
amazing. That's
but
amazing.
she's just like,
Come after me.
Mom, you're posting wrong. I'm like, okay.
I love it.
So, yeah, but I think really it's all about learning and it's all about teaching yourself and sitting down like with a YouTube video and like, okay, how am I going to do this?
Yeah.
And again, cutting through the noise and
Yeah.
not listening to the people that say, It's like, sign up for my program and you're going to make, you'll make $1 million this week. And like, finding out finding the real legitimate, like the legit people who can help you.
Yeah,
And,
just really being discerning, which can be
right.
hard.
Yeah. Cause on LinkedIn, I get, you get like how many, messages do you get a day?
Right.
From people trying to
Hundreds.
sell you something, but no, but
Yeah.
finding a coach, finding someone who's going to help you.
Yeah. I
And,
think that's
if you
so.
don't know how to do it, learn it.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up. And the thing I want to use that as an entry point just to expound upon for some of our listeners who I'm sure have the same struggle that you have had, that in other ways are still experiencing around marketing, around visibility, around how do I get clients? How do I get people to sign up for things? There's so many great ways out there to do it,
Right.
and they all work for the right people at the right time,
Right.
in the right circumstances. And I think the thing that a lot of people struggle with is knowing what to do, right? And understanding like how important it is to know what stage of business you're at, who your audience is, like you were saying, your zone of genius, like what your strengths are, right? There's a lot that is under the marketing umbrella that, turns a lot of us off, but usually there's one or two things that, we do feel a little bit excited about or interested in or are good at. So just finding those things that work and understanding how to refine those systems in the right way rather than trying to do, all the 50 gajillion things out there.
Yeah, no, and I think just being authentic and to yourself, but also asking for help.
Yeah, I love that. So Jen, what's next for you? As you keep growing your business, where do you see this going in the next year, next 2 to 3 years?
Yeah, I mean, I love the coaching. I love helping women. I want to continue to do that. I want to be able to somehow merge the research aspect of it. I would love to be able to collaborate with someone to start doing, research to show outcomes. Because the one thing I know from being a researcher for so long was that nothing is going to be accepted as a reliable, intervention or treatment source, whatever, unless there's data, unless there is, unless there's results. And the National Center for Complementary and Integrative Health, it's part of the
That's a mouthful. I love that you said that so perfectly.
That's why I kind of like went unfocused for a minute because I'm like trying to remember the acronym. It's part of the NIH. Hopefully, it's going to remain part of the NIH. But I listened to one of their symposiums last year, and one of the things that the director of the NCCIH said was that the world needs more health coaches, and the world also needs, to show the impact that health coaches can make, because practitioners out there, doctors, psychologists, psychiatrists, they don't have, they're trying to address so many things in one visit. And then the person goes home. They're like, oh, you have diabetes. This is your treatment plan. This is what you're going to do. But if they link that person also up with a health coach that can help guide them through this new diagnosis, or help guide someone, someone comes to them and says, I'm depressed, or this is going on in my life. They're like, oh yeah, here's a referral. But a health coach can actually do a lot of help. And that's one of the things I want to do is I want to start doing research on the things that we know work. And once it becomes evidence-based, it'll become more accepted. And it's not just with health coaching, but I also, want to get into other holistic practices, herbal medicine, Reiki, and just like start doing some research to show and get it published in decent journals.
Yeah. I love how you bring together like your interests and your passions, especially the ones that have evolved in recent years, with your research and your clinical background. I just think that's so powerful and so important. I want to touch on for a second, this notion, you said that, was it the director of the NIH?
Actually just, I'm spacing on her name. She actually just announced her retirement, but she was the director of the NCCIH for many, many years.
But how she said, like, we need more health coaches. And to me, that is so heartening because, across the board, working with health and wellness practitioners, coaches out there, even consultants, regardless of their area of expertise, I often hear from people this belief that the market is saturated. And very rarely is that true? Right? What they're experiencing is they actually don't know how to find their ideal client, and they don't know how to connect with them and talk with them in a way that opens up the opportunity for them to become clients. And,
Right.
to your point, there are so many people out there suffering from a variety of things. And the issue isn't that the market is saturated. The issue is that we as practitioners, as business owners, don't know how to find and connect with our ideal clients.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it is. And like I just said, that's my biggest struggle is is the marketing part, because I never had to market.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that.
Yeah.
As you look ahead, and I can feel from you, and I love hearing about the ideas that you want to bring to life. I'm just so excited to see where your business goes. Besides the marketing piece, what other things do you anticipate like being either a challenge or like the next learning curve for you as a business owner?
Um, I think the next learning curve is just evolving with the market. Like you said,
Mhm.
it is sort of saturated with coaches in general.
Mhm.
Um, and I took that extra step to become national board certified, and there's certain guidelines that go along with being board certified.
Yeah.
And one of the things I think that gets confused with coaching is, according to the national boards, I can't diagnose, I treat,
Not a
sell,
therapist.
prescribe.
Mhm.
I coach. That's
Mhm.
it. And so I think being able to cut through the noise of saying, this is what I offer. No, I'm not going to sell you a tincture. No, I'm
Mhm.
not going to, I'm not going to have some magic bullet. And I think that's the thing. It's like, that's the struggle. I think what it is just the market itself,
Yeah.
and I think as time goes on, the authentic people, the authentic coaches will cut through the noise of, the people that are just want to sell.
Yeah, I think certainly, in my experience, being good at what you do helps. It certainly
Yeah.
helps with warm referrals. It helps with building trust within your network. And for better or for worse, like there is a piece about learning how to market yourself. I hear the phrase sell yourself a lot. I don't particularly love that phrase.
Yeah.
And something I talk a lot about is reframing this idea of needing to sell ourselves or sell our service into just building connections. Because
Right.
firstly, that's what a lot of women, many women do best, right? We're connectors at heart. We lead with emotions and empathy. And in my experience, when we can develop genuine connections with people and lead with genuine curiosity,
Right.
if they're the right client for us, if they are suffering from the thing that we solve and we can build a connection, many times that naturally leads into a sale or into them becoming a client without us having to feel like we're being pushy or salesy.
Right.
Yeah. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. This has been so much fun, Jen. Do you have any final words, any final like wisdoms or nuggets you want to share with our
Oh, and
listeners about your journey?
it just like you were saying, it's the collaboration, it's the networking, it's finding other people
Yeah.
who are sort of on a parallel journey,
Yeah.
and
Don't do it
and
alone.
really because being an entrepreneur is lonely. It can be really lonely. You're
Can
just sitting
absolutely
there
be.
with your laptop,
Mm,
trying to make things in Canva. It's a lonely place. So
I feel your pain.
yeah, so connect with people. Like you said, connect with people, collaborate, get to know what someone else is doing, be curious. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Speaking of connecting, before we wrap up, what's the best way for listeners to connect with you should they want to after hearing this podcast?
best place is probably my website.
Well,
The name of my company, which I don't think we said, is Bella Vita Alchemy.
okay. And the URL of the
Bella.
website? Uh-huh.
Excuse me.
Yeah, I was gonna have you spell out the URL of
Yeah.
the website.
So BellaVita alchemy.com.
Awesome. Awesome. Amazing. And we'll link you in the description as well so people can find you easily from wherever they're listening. Thank you for that, Jen. And thank you
Yeah.
so much for sharing your wisdom, sharing your unique perspective on merging your clinical background with holistic health, with being an entrepreneur. I think, you've experienced and grown so much, and I just really appreciate your willingness to share your story. And thank you, listener, for tuning in to another episode of FoundHer Rising. If today's episode resonated with you, make sure to follow the show, share it with another founder, and leave a quick review. It helps more women find these conversations. You can always connect with me on LinkedIn or learn more about how I support women grow and scale service-based businesses at HakkolaHorizons.com, if I can say my own last name. Until next time, keep rising and keep building the business that gives you freedom to live, lead, and create on your terms.